Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Water Pollution Control Authority meeting, Wednesday, May 19th. We've posted an agenda. Are there any proposed comments or changes? Hearing none, we'll proceed with the agenda as posted. Item 1, call to order. I guess I just did that. Item 2, approval of the April 21st regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Or a second? All in favor? Aye.
Oh,
Quinn has to abstain. I wasn't there.
Yep, good point, Quinn.
I forgot to make it.
Okay, let's moving on to new business. First item in front of us is to hear, consider, and act upon a request from Waldo Associates for a proposed 44-unit residential development at 83 Castle Avenue. Chris, do you want to introduce this to the commission?
Yeah, there's been the proposed 44-unit apartment building being proposed on Castle Ave. They've done flow monitoring at 2 locations. The flow monitoring was done and the report was written significant of adequate capacity in the pipes. So I don't know if somebody from Waldo Associates wants to, Russ, you want to take over?
Good evening. My name is Rob Sonicson. I'm a partner at Waldo and Associates. That was a very concise summary of the evaluation that was done. I don't know how much the commission would like to go into the detail of the plan. It is a 44-unit residential building. It has 16 efficiency 1-bedroom apartments, 20 standard 1-bedroom apartments, and 8 2-bedroom apartments. And in accordance with the Town of Fairfield's inflow and infiltration abatement policy, the flow monitoring program was undertaken. 2 locations that were selected were on Jennings Road, which is north of the site. The site being on the north side of the intersection of Berwick Avenue and Castle Avenue. Jennings Road was selected as the first site. The sewage from Jennings Road flows down to Kings Highway and makes its way to the east interceptor, which flows along the Rooster River down to Hibiscus Avenue, where it crosses I-95.
Yeah.
The location for the second monitoring was Nathan Hale Street, which was a downstream location. Based on our analysis, the Nathan Hale sewer has a calculated capacity of about 664 gallons a minute. The highest observed flow within the program took just a month to complete, which was remarkable. We had 2 1/2-inch rainstorms during that time period. The highest flow that was recorded at Nathan Hale was 309 gallons per minute. We added a factor of safety to the flow, which brought the flow rate up to 324 gallons per minute, which would be 49% of the sewer capacity. So at that downstream location, there was adequate using a conservative factor of safety at the Nathan Hale monitoring location. Jennings Road was even better. Jennings Road sewer is an 8-inch sewer, and it has a capacity of about 1,410 gallons per minute. So we added our maximum flow into that. and it brought the flow rate in at the Jennings Road monitoring location up to 21.5% of the sewer capacity. So based on our professional opinion and in consultation with your staff, our determination was that there's adequate capacity to be able to accept the sewage from this residential development. And you know, I could tell you about the site plan if you're interested, but it's going to have a sewer connection that will go into Berwick and flow into Castle and down to Jennings and into the East Interceptor.
Are there any comments or questions from the commission?
Mark, I had a question on the property right now.
I'm sorry, Ron, let me interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Someone has a TV on in the background. Could they mute?
I just
please?
muted.
Okay, great. Appreciate it. Ron,
Yeah, sorry.
floor is yours.
I know where this is. My question is the in and out to the 44 units going to come from Jennings Road where Walgreens is, or is it going to be down the road there?
The driveway is on Castle Avenue. It's approximately 80 feet north of the intersection of Berwick Avenue and Castle Avenue. So traffic will come out of the driveway and choose to either take a left going down Castle. Most of the traffic's going to take another left onto Longfellow to go down to the signalized intersection at Kings Highway. The other traffic that's heading toward Bridgeport will take a right out of the driveway, go down to Jennings Road, take another right to the signal on Kings Highway at that location.
Get out, they're most likely going to take a left and then hit the light down there near the tire place. Is that true?
We have a traffic study that was done, and it separated the traffic, and it's interesting. It really depends on whether the people are interested in getting to I-95, in which case they probably take Longfellow or go down to Black Rock Turnpike and get on there. It's mostly traffic that's heading into Bridgeport on Kings Highway that would be taking the Jennings Road side.
Enough said. I don't want to carry on here. Just wondering
Joe.
where direction it's going.
Chris Rogers. Any contingencies, any issues that you see, Chris?
No, I think
Thank
it's everything was supplied. I don't see any problems.
Thank you.
Yeah, one quick question for me. That the monitoring locations make perfect sense to me, but is there any point along that route going through kind of the Metro Center area, the East Trunk Interceptor, which we'll speak about later, where there might be a capacity issue?
Potentially down the road, yes, there will be, along Ash Creek. And that's part of the East Trunk relocation project.
Yeah.
So that downsizes from a 30-inch to from a 33 to a 30-inch line. So there's a restriction in the line that's part of the East Trunk relocation. So, but as of right now, we still have capacity. So
at that location, okay.
Yeah.
And bless you, Matt. Any other any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion? Motion from Joe.
I'd make a motion to accept the plan as revised in the memo dated May 11th, 2021, to approve the proposed 44-unit residential development at 83 Castle Avenue to connect to the Whitfield sewer system. This approval will remain in effect for 2 years, with understanding that if the permit is not issued within this 2-year period, the applicant will submit a request to the commission for a subsequent 2-year renewal. The INI fee will be calculated based on the current rate in effect when the building permit is issued by WPCA.
There a second? Second from Matt, just beat Christian to the, just by a split second. Comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is Quinn, aye.
Okay, looks to be unanimous. Okay, very well.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is to hear, consider, and act upon a request by BL Companies for a proposed 114-seat, bit over 5,000 square foot Chick-fil-A at the former Joe's American Grill, 750 Post Road. Chris and Bill, what do we have here?
They have done flow monitoring at 2 locations downstream. I'll give you a little back history on this. One of the monitoring locations came back with a significant increase to the flow monitoring. We did some investigating. Sorry, I don't know who that is, but we did some investigating. We found out that as soon as the monitor was installed, sorry, I gotta mute you, Bill, for a minute. As soon as the monitor was installed, it wasn't calibrated, so it gave a significant increase to the line. The flow monitoring company submitted a letter saying that there was a default in the data. We've taken that out of the picture, and they've resubmitted their flow calculations, which appear to be significantly better. We went back and forth several times on this with the projected flow and how to figure it, because we haven't had a drive-through per se and come through to us. They're going to have a significant increase for the cars, 1,232 cars per day on a weekend. So it's pretty significant. Public health code calls for 5 gallons per day per car. We went with a safety value of 2 gallons per day. The 5 gallons per day is for a subsurface septic system, and they have a peaking factor value factored into that already. We went with 2 gallons per day, and they added a peaking factor in it, so essentially it comes out to 8 gallons per day for that. So I don't know, Matt, if you want to take over, if you have anything further you want to add, or you want to present your.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the summary. Again, my name is Matt Robillard. I'm with BL Companies. Hope everyone can hear me okay. If you can't, thank you. Great. Good. Thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate that. So Chris kind of summed it up great. We did do flow monitoring for working with Chris's group here to determine the proper manholes to monitor. As he stated, we did have a faulty reading, which led to some initial calculations that were revised upon determining that was the very first reading that went in the manhole. Our flow monitoring firm provided documentation that was what happened. So the real calculation here was done on 25 gallons per day per seat for anticipated use, which is consistent with Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a diner at Sacred Heart. Is that what you said? Right. It was a diner? Yeah. Yes. So it's staying consistent in our calculations, 25 gallons per day per seat, which was 114 seats, and then 2 gallons per day per meal per car. The projected daily trips using ITE generation is the kind of the safest, most conservative approach to determining how many trips of vehicles we could see on a daily basis, and that led us with 1,232 cars potentially on a weekend, which would be the busiest time. So adding that up, we ended up with a resulting total of 5,314 gallons per day. Applying a peaking factor of 4, which, as Chris mentioned, is a safety factor in this situation, puts us at 21,256 gallons per day. It's a very conservative estimate. I would say that the anticipated usage based on similar based on potential client tenants here, is about 1,500 gallons per day is what they project. We could apply a peaking factor there, and that would give us about 6,000 gallons per day. But staying consistent across the board and trying to be as conservative as possible leads us to 21,256 gallons per day. When applying that number to the existing flows at both sites, for Site 1, which was at Kings Highway and Post Road, we ended up with a capacity of 42%, utilizing 42%. So that 42.7. So that would leave over 40, so 42% capacity, almost 43%. Using Site 2, and looking at Site 2, South Benson and Post Road, we are at 57.5% capacity with the added flow. So as you can see, we're not really creeping up toward anywhere near that 80 number. We're not, presenting any, proposing any concerns, anything that would be of concern in our opinion. Happy to answer any questions about how the calculations were put into place and take any commission questions.
One comment I want to make is I've given Matt the existing water records from the previous restaurant. They're going to take those water records and compare those to this current projected flow data to determine their I&I. They'll get a credit for the existing restaurant that's on the site. So that's how they're going to figure, but it hasn't been done yet. Correct, Matt? I haven't seen them, but.
That has not been done yet. No, I figured let's have this meeting, and then when we calculate the fees, we can have that discussion.
Sure.
Do we know what the increase is over the previous site?
I don't know. I haven't looked at the water records.
I don't think we've seen the initial water records.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we also did a visual inspection on the line just to take a look to make sure that the capacity was there, and it was below half a pipe, so we had plenty of capacity.
I'll say I was personally confused by the flow related to the drive-through, and to me I was conceptualizing wastewater, and it's actually restaurant water use, and that is what's driving these numbers, not people going to the bathroom. So if anyone else was, had the same conundrum, there you go.
Yeah, I'll take the I guess the car thing again. I know if you've ever taken a ride down to Norwalk and seen the Chick-fil-A down there, every single day that I've ever gone there, even to pick up a filter at PC Richards there, the lines are tremendous to go to the drive-up. I mean, literally, there could be 20 cars. I'm hoping that with American Joe's there, that they establish how they're going to do the drive-up, where the exit will be and how it will line up, because right now, if you go in the back there, there's not a lot of room there either.
So that's not really under our purview, but I think it's a valid point. Matt, let me ask you a question relative to the layout. Are you proposing using the same footprint, or is it a different footprint? And will it be the same connection or a different connection?
So it is not the same footprint. The building that is proposed is in a different location than the current restaurant. And we are not utilizing the existing connection. There will be a new connection from the building to a grease trap to to a couple of manhole structures before it enters the existing There's an existing sanitary manhole along Post Road that we're going to tie into.
Okay. Are there any issues with that connection going into Post Road?
No, it goes to Post Road now.
Okay.
There's an existing connection. Actually, there's two connections that are going to be disconnected, and one new one made.
Okay, so this is Quinn. I got sort of lost here. I thought you were taking over the Joe's restaurant building. You are going to be using some part of that, or not anything at all?
No, we will not be using any of that building.
So you're going to be putting up a new building behind that one?
Yes, it would be to the west and north. So looking at Post Road, if you're looking at it across here, I can, so it would be not exactly behind it, but off to the angle on a side.
But Joe's would be demolished, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and there's a barber shop next door that's going to be coming down as well, a little white building.
Right. So relative to capacity, it sounds like from Bill and Chris, there's adequate capacity. There's no connection issues. Any other comments, questions from the commission?
Chris, you had mentioned disconnecting 2 lines. What's the plan for, are those going to be disconnected where are they getting disconnected, I guess? Are we concerned about I&I through those lines if they're abandoned?
They usually disconnect them usually 10 feet off the main with a rubber gasket, and then they cement around it so that, there's no infiltration, so.
Okay, good.
Fair motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the revised plan, which is dated 5/18/2021, proposing to build a 5,172 square foot restaurant at 750 Post Road. This approval will remain in effect for 2 years with the understanding that if the permit is not issued within this 2-year period, the applicant will submit a request to the commission for a subsequent 2-year renewal. The I&I fee will be calculated based on the current rate, reduced by the current usage when the building permit is issued by the WPCA staff.
Is there a second? Christian? Oh, Matt.
I tried to give him the opportunity to beat me.
Second from Matt. All in favor? Aye.
Hi, this is Quinn.
Quinn's an aye. That's unanimous. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a great night. Talk soon.
You as well. You as well.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, to hear, consider, and act upon a change order for the microgrid project. Mr. Norton.
Yes, this is a change order due to some of the mechanisms needed to be refurbished because they've been sitting so long, number one. And number two, some of the wire that wasn't purchased originally has increased in price exponentially. The construction goods have gone up astronomically in the last few weeks. So there's this contractors there telling me they can only get a price for wire that's good for an afternoon. That's how it's changing. So
Literally, yeah.
So this price will be held through June. There was another aspect that came up to yesterday. There was the sites were looked at the Animal Control, Conservation, and the Fire Academy. They were looked at because they didn't know where the photovoltaic solar panels came into the building. So they came in, I guess, on the demand side, not on the load side. So
Load side. Yeah,
So-
I talked to Laura.
yeah, okay. So they're going to need 3 additional boxes that aren't included in this change order. I spoke to Yankee Electric with Chris on the phone about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So if we want to go ahead with this change order and carry this price, or we can add about $60,000 in for the 3 boxes that will cover all of the fees.
That what makes the total, what, 390?
Well,
That
that
would
would
144,388. Sorry, Bill.
yeah, that would if we added the additional 60,000, we'd be looking at 200,000, 205, 210,000. The additional monies is that line item number 3, the 235, 555, 20. We have 110,000 still available within the project. And Laura wanted to carry a conservative fee just in case, contingency.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the difference in my overall calculation. Okay.
Yeah. If you see, you'll see 118,000. We're carrying. We're using 110,000. So there's 8,000 in contingency. And if you can
So
see
you're
it, I'll
looking
just give you a little. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go on.
Quinn.
No, go on.
No, I just to give you a little back history. Last month, April 7th, we got a quote of 157,173, and within a month it went up to 196,000. So as Bill had said, you know, and I don't know if everybody's aware, but the cost of construction materials is quadrupling, and this is going up, you know, as you know, daily. So no one wants to hold their price for more than a day, basically. So.
You said this was wire. What's that? Copper wire?
Yeah, copper wire, the boxes, yeah, yep. Construction materials itself is
It's basically all construction material. It's PVC pipe, it's wire, it's
Yeah.
conduit, it's boxes, it's stainless steel, everything.
Everything
I guess-
except wood.
Wood too.
Yes, wood.
No, wood dropped.
Wood is,
Wood's dropped like 30%. Wood's dropped 30% in the last week.
Oh,
well, hopefully everything else does.
well, I don't know, because people were telling me they were going to Home Depot paying, you know, $250 for a pressure treated 2x4, and they went back, it was $11. So I don't know.
Look at lumber future prices.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully it'll come down there.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's off the subject.
Do we have any option here?
Well, Bill and I talked to Laura about it. So the thought would be that we propose, or we approved the 144,388 with a not to exceed value of say 225, or you guys propose what figure you want. But we won't know the cost of the proposals till we get them from Yankee. So they're still working with Snyder. Yankee Electric is working with Snyder to come up with a price for these electric boxes and the work and labor and so forth to get this done. So go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Mark,
Joe, the floor is yours.
Yep.
may I be recognized? Mark?
Joe,
Again, am I losing something in here? It's the fire training station, the conservation building, and animal control that need the boxes. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
We represent the ratepayers for the sewer system here. I mean, I have a hard time approving money that isn't related to the plant. So what am I missing here of the 60? It sounds like, or the boxes.
No, I agree.
Let me ask this question. Bill might be able to answer. I don't know the answer, but I'm just going to ask. Does the electricity from those photovoltaic cells impact the treatment plant in any way?
Yes.
Okay. So.
But we're not talking about the cells, are we? We're talking about the boxes that connect the cells to the other buildings to supply electricity to those buildings.
These are actually, I believe, photovoltaic cells that are on these buildings.
So do the photovoltaic cells actually power anything in the animal and in the fire station, or does everything get directed to the sewer plant?
hold on a second. Chris, can I ask you to mute everyone, and whoever's speaking, just unmute yourself?
Yeah.
I think if I understand the question correctly, I believe the photo cells that we're identifying for these buildings are on those buildings and supply the power to those buildings, not to the treatment plant. The photovoltaic array that's up on the old landfill is what supplies the electricity to the treatment plant.
So then I agree. Why are we paying for those other buildings, especially the fire building?
I think basically what we want to do is get through this project, get it done with. $60,000 in a, $3 million project to get it completed and out of the way and finally done with. Or we can just approve our portion of it and then go back to the town for the 60,000 for the 3 boxes. And that's an estimate. Could be less than that.
Yeah, so the question for us is, do we want to wait and broker a deal with the town? And we're gonna have a conversation on the hardening plan around that. And the downside is the costs go up, or the upside is we can go back to the town and negotiate to split the costs, and maybe the costs go down. So those are kind of the two options in front of us.
How long has the project been delayed so far?
Probably a year and a half, ever since it shut down as soon as the hardening project identified the PCBs, environmental hazard.
And what's the downside of delaying it further until we're a little further removed from the pandemic and price volatility and all that kind of stuff?
It's whether the price goes up or not.
Right.
I think we have a
And
grant
also-
for this too, and I don't know what the extension is. So
That's the type of thing that I was more concerned with, if we're missing either permit or grant or any of that type of stuff. But
Yeah, originally the whole project was 100% grant.
right.
I just know the
I
construction in
believe-
general right now is volatile, and so if we could delay until we get, that just sounds outrageous, a $235,000 increase in material costs.
Do we have any ability to bid this incremental expense, Yankee Electric versus anyone else? Or are we locked into Yankee Electric?
I believe we're locked into Schneider, and Yankee
Schneider.
Electric is Schneider's subcontractor.
Gotcha.
Can Yankee look at Home Depot?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, that's for sure. I mean, I don't think we want to be in the position of trying to estimate or project where raw material or construction prices are going to go, because they always seem to go up. And they seldom go down. I think Joe's point is very valid, that here's something that was to be split with the town that is coming in our direction, needs to be dealt with. I kind of wish, in hindsight, I put the hardening plant project update before this on the agenda. Those are much bigger dollars that need to be split, where the town has said 60-40, 60 being us, 40 being the town. And that was something that came to us last week and kind of needed an immediate decision in order to be put on the town agenda for this week. And the call that Joe and I participated in, it was in our shared judgment that the sooner we move forward with that, the better, as prices are seemingly increasing on a daily basis. So that was millions of dollars. Here we are in hundreds of thousands of dollars. And going forward, we'll be in tens of millions of dollars of spent on the plant upgrade. So it's a fluid back and forth discussion with the town. I'm not generally involved in those discussions. But I can appreciate the angst around them.
I guess the only other question I have is going back to Schneider about their 20% markup. I mean, I can understand that in a normal situation, but I mean, why do they get a 20% markup to prices that have adjusted upwards?
We've already beat them down 5%. They were looking for 25%. So, and we tried to get them
It's more
to
of a
go lower
safety.
than they were. Laura beat them up pretty good, but that's as far as she can get them.
Look, I'm personally not opposed to just saying we're not inclined right now. You know, we can put the project on hold. You know, but I'm looking for a consensus from the commission.
As the plant operator, I don't want to put it on hold. I want to get this done, get them out of there, get them away from that, get the hardening out of there, get them away from that. Then, you know, then all of a sudden we'll be looking at, you know, a couple of years of design, and we'll be looking at 3 years of tearing the site up. So I think, as Matt can allude to, you know, consultant fees don't go down. So the longer we drag it out, they're going to keep, you know, billing us for the hours they work, and that's going to continue to grow, both on Snyder and Yankee Electric when they have to go back and revisit these quotes. Their estimating time and their consulting fees are going to continue to grow. So, you know, if I had to say, I would just say, you know, if we're not comfortable doing the 3 boxes, I understand that. Let's go ahead and do our portion and say, you know, the other 3 boxes we think, you know, should be on the town's obligation. Or if we just want to go ahead and get through it and get it done, do it that way.
Joe,
I agree with Phil. Let's do our portion of it. The boxes are out. They can delay if the town wants to delay that side of the project because it's not part of the plant. That's up to them. I don't know who makes that decision on the town side. These projects seem to all come together at one point. It becomes both plant and non-plant related that they're estimates for money. And that's fairly consistent with all the projects we seem to do. So I'd be in favor of supporting doing the work that Bill needs to have done to get the plant to benefit the microgrid.
Was that a motion?
Break out the project accordingly.
Did I hear a motion in there?
If you'd like a motion, I'd like to make a motion and I've lost track of the dollars. So help me out, Bill and Chris. Not the 60, is it the 144 or the 198? I've lost.
It's the 144.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to approve $144,388, not to exceed $144,388 to complete the WPCA portion of the microgrid project.
Is there a second?
That's the correct amount, right, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to add in the 48 cents. I don't know if that makes a difference, but it's down to
I'd
the
add
penny.
the 48 cents, yes. 140, I'm amending 144,388 and 43 cents.
Okay. Is there a second? Second from Matt. Comments, questions? Well, I have a comment or a question. Where are we allocating money from? Are we bonding that? Is that coming out of our cash reserve? Where's the money coming from?
I believe this money would probably come out of the fund reserve because this is allocated as part of the change orders, which comes out of the fund balance.
Okay.
There's the line item that'll go negative in my budget, and then once the end of the year hits, whatever's not available comes out of the fund balance.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Bill, we have control of this, right? You'll see that they're not spending an additional 60,000.
No, I'll see all the invoices come through me.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Quinn?
I'm gonna abstain only because I just joined the meeting. So as long as it's not gonna hold anybody up,
No.
I just would feel more comfortable. Sorry to jump in.
Glad you're here, Nancy. Good to see you. Quinn, all I see is a black square for you, rectangle. Is that a yay or a nay? Quinn's muted.
Hang on.
Oh, now I'm unmuted. That's
Nope.
it. Yay.
He's good.
Thank you, sir.
Just for Nancy's information, those 3 boxes will probably go on the first or the selectmen's board meeting, and that'll probably come up at their meeting so that we can try to get the funding and get the project completed.
Excellent point, Bill.
Did you
Okay,
catch
and-
that?
Yeah, and
Did
at
you
some
catch
point,
part that?
yeah, I caught just the end there. And at some point, we should talk
Okay.
about the communication channels that we alluded to at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. It got a little funky there at the end of our Board of Selectmen meeting.
Okay.
In terms of
Okay.
communication channels and expectations, and Bill, maybe we could talk about that towards the end.
Sure, because I didn't hear that because I wasn't on till the end.
Let's move along to old business. And first item is to hear an update from Pereira Engineering representing RD Cinto on the bypass pipe investigation CCTV results at 185 Thorpe Street. I don't believe there's any information we have on this in advance of the meeting, is there? Or did I miss that? Okay,
No,
so
just the site plan. So
okay, so a real-time update from Joe. Joe,
Hello,
welcome.
everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So last week, RD Cinto and I met with Laura Pooley and John Marsilio to review the current proposal and just to get some feedback. And in the end, the plan is to install the doghouse manhole on our property. And then we will pay to televise the line again, just to check out its current status. And then at that point, we would let the town decide whether to line the pipe, replace the pipe, or some other option. But RD Cinto would be willing to donate again up to $100,000 towards that work.
Okay, I was just looking at the site plan as I jump back onto WebEx. So, yeah, it sounds like
that site plan. If you
yeah, that's probably worthwhile if you can do that.
want me to put it up on
yeah,
here.
hang on.
Be great.
Here, let me let you go ahead. All right, you're good.
Can you see that?
No.
All right, hold on. Let me do this. Here we go.
Yeah.
Can you see that? Okay, great. So let me zoom in here. So,
Yeah.
and here's the site. Here's the north side of the building. So we're connecting to the existing sewers, routing it around the building, and then we would install a doghouse manhole onto the existing sewer main here, at which point we will have eliminated all of this existing piping upstream. And the hope is that any problem areas are there. So we would televise it once the doghouse manhole is in, again, and give the town the option to, review the footage, investigate it, and decide what to do.
What are we thinking about in terms of timing for that video?
As far as after the doghouse manhole we're in?
Yeah, what's kind of the timeline for this endeavor?
Well, they're looking to get started on it right away.
Okay.
So if we were to get approval, they're anxious to get this project going. It's been years in the making. So they would start on the sewer work right away. And then as soon as that doghouse manhole is in, they would have that televised and, have WPCA personnel involved in that review.
Okay. So Chris and Bill, I know you weren't in that meeting, and it's a bit awkward in that there's been a discussion about a proposal, but we don't have a formal proposal to the WPC this evening. So is this to be a proposal, or is this to be a discussion this evening? And you probably don't know either. So.
Yeah, this is the latest
Yeah,
and greatest.
correct.
This is the latest and greatest plan that was submitted to WPCA, I think a couple of meetings ago.
Okay.
So this is the proposal.
Joe, what's the planned sequence of construction for the new pipe all the way to the doghouse manhole? In terms of, I mean, like, do you have to do any bypassing on the existing sewer line or no?
Yeah, there'll be some bypassing involved. We'd have to work with the contractor once he's on board to figure out exactly, what he proposes. But yeah, we'll have to take a deeper look at it and work with the client and the contractor to figure out, what is the best way to approach that.
Because is it possible, once you're bypassing, can you go to the downstream manhole? And I know it's not ideal to CCTV upstream, but if you're already bypassing, I'm just thinking, I mean, rather than have to do a second bypass to CCTV from the new doghouse downstream, if you can go to whatever the downstream manhole is and CCTV upstream to approximately the location of the proposed doghouse manhole, it saves time and it saves a second bypass.
Yeah, I think once we're connected, the thinking is to televise the doghouse manhole and into the existing line south downstream of it to make sure it's all flowing.
Right, I understand that. I just figured if you're already bypassing during construction, if you could simultaneously get a TV crew out, not from the part, like basically instead of going downstream from the doghouse manhole, go upstream from whatever manhole is downstream of the doghouse manhole. So you'd be TVing upstream, but hopefully in an empty pipe. Does that make sense?
So let me repeat, are you asking, let me zoom in here, maybe that'll help here. So here's our doghouse manhole and the manhole downstream, right? Can you see my cursor there?
Exactly, yeah, so
are you asking if we can, are you asking if we can televise this line empty?
Correct.
I think that's a major task because that would be involving work in the marsh, which we're trying to stay out of overland.
Understood. Okay.
So
yep,
that's the big problem. So, and the piping upstream of this doghouse manhole is meaningless because by that point,
exactly, you're abandoning it. So
yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Yep, I understand. I didn't realize the marsh issue.
Yeah, that's really the big one. There's a lot involved there with permitting and obviously dealing with the marsh itself.
Yep.
And the fact that it's not on our property, that's the other big issue.
Mm-hmm. So what happens in a scenario where you televise that and we see that there's integrity issues with the pipe and the pipe needs to be replaced, and our timeline for doing that is replacing the pipe is significantly beyond the timeline of this project?
Well, I think we make the connection. The pipe right now is flowing today. So I don't anticipate by putting in a doghouse that will impact the integrity of that pipe downstream.
I agree.
So I think the town would have some leeway there, you know, based on your own schedule to get to that work. But
So it's 3 months.
What's that, Mark?
That was,
It's 3 months. Sorry. Yeah. This
So
is Mark Fasano from
that's
Simcoe.
Mark.
okay.
Yeah. So 3 months from
I
now,
finally
Mark.
figured out how to talk into this thing. It would be three months to get us to the doghouse. We already have the contractor signed up.
Okay, so
Can you
by
have that?
August, September, we can have that answer.
Yeah. Yes.
Just so everybody knows, I did meet with Mr. Cinto Senior almost 2 weeks ago Friday, before he met with Laura and John. And this was the scenario he proposed. Go ahead and put all their infrastructure in, including the doghouse, to see if it has any impact on the flow within that line. That'll tell us one
That's
way or
right.
the other if there's some impacts within the line before they start where all their infrastructure is going to go, or it still lies within that line. Now, if it still lies within that line, it's still, if maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Mr. Cinto is still obligated to the town for the $100,000 to help out with whatever we need to do to that line, whether it's replace it or
Right.
align it or whatever. I don't think we tell anything about that line unless we bypass it and get a TV in there to see exactly what condition that line is in. Now, if by putting all the new infrastructure work, we can lower the flow in that line, that may be a viable option if that does it. So that's one of the things we may be looking at. But if it doesn't, then it's still, we're basically back to where we were, but at least all their infrastructure is in place. I don't think we're any worse than where we are.
That's correct. We're going to replace the whole main. We can do that starting when we mobilize, get to the doghouse in 3 months, and then make the determination then. But we are ready to replace the sewer main on Thorpe Street, bring it to the doghouse, and then, do the, analysis to see if the sag is on wherever it is. We think it's on our property, and then we can make a determination then. So we're ready to start the project, replace the whole sewer main right now.
Matt, we're fortunate to have your experience and expertise. And Joe, I'm going to get to you right after Matt. What are your thoughts on the process?
I have no issues with the plan of going from where they're proposing sanitary manhole 1 to the doghouse. And I don't theoretically have any issues with punting the CCTV until that doghouse is in, to go from the doghouse to Ruane Road, that existing manhole, because that's the part, I guess, that we need to TV. I mean, I guess the only thing that I'm still trying to wrap my head around is I know that it's an extremely complicated and expensive bypass to go from sanitary manhole 1 to Ruane Road. And so trying to not have to do that twice would, I think, benefit everybody involved. That's why I was suggesting, I can understand not doing CCTVing from station 28 up to the doghouse, but then I zoomed out a little bit and looking at station 30 plus 25. Can you TV upstream from there all the way to the doghouse, or is that too long of a run? That would be, looks like
Joe?
300, almost 400 feet.
You mean empty out the line and televise it?
So, I mean, I think you have to you have to be bypassing to install the new pipe, correct? From manhole 1 to the doghouse.
Yeah, the way I envision it is again, in, you know, rough scope, the current sewers all come through here and down across. So I'm envisioning we would install some type of doghouse here around the existing. Maybe install all of this piping, install this doghouse. And then at some point, bypass from here to wherever we need to go, or maybe come upstream here, and then plug and switch over during late night, early evening.
You'd be bypassing just during the tie-ins.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't envision, and I don't think it's economically feasible to bypass for any long term for something like this.
Yep, that makes sense. And you would be bypassing from that manhole 1 to the doghouse. You wouldn't be bypassing beyond that. So even during the
right,
tie-ins.
there'd be no need. Right, we wouldn't want to get involved in the marsh and permitting and anything else related.
Right.
Right.
But so as far as CCTVing, once that work is done, TVing from the doghouse to station 3025, that's going to, I mean, that'll still require, if it needs to be bypassed, does that bypass is going to have to run through the marsh, right?
I would imagine, yeah. I think you'd have to bypass from here to 3025, leaving this stretch of pipe empty. So, you know, you might end up pigging or put a plug in this line, a plug in this line, bypass, get this line empty, and then televise it.
Right. So, I mean, that's still the part that it's the most complicated part of the whole project, but I mean, I have no issues with everything that Joe just described.
But that's not something we're looking to do, though, right? We're looking to install the doghouse manholes, televise it to make sure everything's flowing, and hopefully we don't see any kind of submerged condition or anything else.
Right, but last time it was TV'd, we couldn't really see much of anything.
Right, we TV'd up to somewhere on our site, and we couldn't tell where the problem was. The hope now is put in this doghouse manhole and then televise it, and hopefully everything is in improved condition. If not, then I think the town has to decide, you know, do you want us to line it? At which point we can, you know, provide up to $100,000 worth of work there, or, you know, does the town say, no, we'll handle it, and Cinto writes a check for $200,000 towards that work.
Yeah.
Let me just ask this. What are you considering an improved condition? A lower flow? Because the original thought was that this line is settled through the wetlands, through the marshland here. And I see your point of wanting to reroute this around the building. But the main problem area obviously is still, you know, it's still going to be an unknown until we bypass this and camera it through the wetlands.
Yeah, possibly. You know, the benefit here is the town gets a brand new sanitary sewer, replacing old infrastructure and combining it, you know, all into a brand new pipe.
Joe, you had a question.
Yeah, the original dip and the original concept when we voted on this project was that Mr. Cinto was going to either line or replace, well, originally, it was talking about $100,000 to work on that pipe. And the pipe we were talking about originally was the pipe in the swamp. Then it became replacing the pipe, which obviously was not a good choice on Mr. Cinto's part, because that would be catastrophic trying to build something through that swamp. So I just want to make sure we're still talking about apples and apples here. When this project was approved, that $100,000 was going towards either lining the pipe that's going through the swamp, and then it evolved to changing that pipe in the swamp. Is that what we're still talking about, Joe? Because you had talked about spending $100,000 on your property when you first presented a few minutes ago.
No.
That's not the same $100,000.
Correct. Yeah, we will do all of the work on our site up to the doghouse manhole. We will then televise it and see what we find and review that with the town. And then at that point, it's giving the town up to $100,000 to decide what to do. You can line it, you can replace the pipe, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, so I guess my main concern would just be that TVing it without bypassing, I'm assuming that's gonna not be useful information. I could be wrong. I mean, it's possible that the new pipe that you guys are, the new route that you put in solves any kind of issue, but I agree with Bill. I think it's likely that it's probably in the wetlands, and that the improvements that you do aren't going to improve the problem area. So.
Possibly,
Right,
but you can use $100,000 to bypass that line. You know, it's up to the town. Whatever you want to do at that point, you've got $100,000. You can spend $100,000 on bypassing and televising. You can spend it on lining it. You can spend it on replacement.
I believe the last few meetings, the only
That's correct.
the things we were looking at doing was that you were going to go and do your infrastructure work on your property just to see if we took away from any of the issues with it. If we lowered the flow at all, if we lowered it enough, maybe we can get in there and TV it. If that happens, fine. If it doesn't, we're still where we are right now. We're no worse. But the only thing we're hoping is it makes us a little better.
Yeah, I think you'll be better because you've got a brand new sewer line. The question is what happens downstream, and I agree with you there, but we're not sure. We're hoping that the problem area is behind us, literally upstream. But
yeah, I think it's saying to going back to Chris's take on it too is if that problem is within the swamp, it's going to stay within the swamp. Whatever we do up here is going to tell us whether we have the ability to make it a little better, but we're not going to make it any worse. So if the problem's still within the swamp, it's going to stay within the swamp. You're going to be able to at least put your infrastructure in place, and then we can move on from there.
right, and donate money towards that solution, however the town deems to spend it.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Joe.
Hate to throw a curve in this one, but that's not what we approved in our minutes at the last meeting we had on this topic.
No, we have probably over the last 3 years approved at least 3 different permutations of this.
I'm just worried about the last one we approved,
Yeah.
which was Mr. Cinto was going to either line or replace that pipe in the swamp before it became.
No, not replace.
And I'm not pushing
Not
that.
replace.
I'm sorry?
We never agreed to replace the line. We agreed to contribute $100,000 if the town
Joe, I
decided to
beg
replace
to
the line.
differ. That was not what was presented at one of our meetings. I'm
So
not going to
that's
get
what we
into.
discussed. That's what we discussed with in our meeting the other day.
Oh, the other day.
And-
Now I'm talking about a commission meeting. I'm sorry. The last one that's in our minutes to approve this project. That's where I'm going.
I think
I'm
Joe,
not talking about any
Yeah.
meetings, operational meetings.
I think Joe raises a good point that the commission meeting minutes do not reflect where tonight's discussion is.
That is correct.
This has remarkable parallels to the Metro Center, how that played out over a couple of years. And I'm intent on getting a commission policy on these sorts of infrastructure issues so that we don't have this, ping pong back and forth with developers.
Right. Joe, don't get me wrong. My concern is procedural. It's not operational. You guys work out the operations side of it and come back. But procedurally, we have something on the record right now.
This is Mark Fasano from Cinto. So we will replace the sewer, bring it to the doghouse. We are not going to replace the line if you decide that. We're going to contribute, when it comes off of our property into the swamp, we'll contribute $100,000 to whatever the town decides to do. They can line it. If they replace it, they can replace it. But we're going to tie into that sewer line and contribute $100,000 if whatever the town decides to do. We are not going to replace the line that goes off our property into the CAM. It's not in the wetlands. It's a coastal area management issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to get caught in a loop of the back and forth. We understand the Cinto position. I agree with Joe that we have a procedural issue here in front of us, that our meeting minutes do not reflect the understanding that's in front of us. So the question is, do we opine on that this evening, or do we bring back a motion next month that brings the two positions into harmony, and we vote on that next month?
My opinion, Mark, would be we opine on it and if we bring it back next month to clear it up.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, so that way we bring Chris and Bill into the loop. There's consistency, and we'll bring forward that motion in June.
So just what would the motion be?
The motion would be more or less what you articulated, that there would be $100,000 contribution to the town to either line the pipe, that you will cover the expense of the infrastructure on the property.
Yes.
And the infrastructure that is WPCA infrastructure, that is a capital improvement that we will consider as a commission.
And if I can just say, that was actually the first position when it was first proposed, before the latest vote on by our commission.
You have an excellent memory, Joe. So we'll clean that up and we'll go forward. And shortly after that, we will work on a some wording around how the commission goes forward. I mean, it's not lost on me that we approved a project earlier tonight, the Waldo Associates project, that's going to impact the East Trunk Interceptor line and the Metro Center pipe. But because it's not proximate to that, we don't spend a lot of time talking about it. I mean, there's a lot of flow that goes through this swamp, and it's not just the project that's next to it, but it's any project upstream from that we need to think about, which is why we have an I&I fee, and in part why we increased that I&I fee. That's enough out of me. Okay. Let's. There's no action taken. There was no action requested. Let's continue to move on to a continuation of our discussion from last month to hear, consider, and act upon the proposed fog ordinance. There were a number of comments that were brought up at last month's meeting. Chris incorporated those comments into a new fog ordinance. And what we have in front of us is a revised proposal for comments and questions from the commission.
So excuse me. So Joe, are you clear on that? Joe?
I'm sorry, who's speaking? We have call-in user.
So I'm sorry, this is tough. This is Mark from Cinto.
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever, I just want to make sure that whatever we propose for the next meeting, we're clear on what we're proposing.
That's easy.
Because we would like to start. I mean, we're ready to go in this thing. We have people standing ready to put the sewer line in. I just want to make sure we do the right thing. that we-
Yeah. I mean, Mark, the disconnect is we have a department that was kind of out of the loop in the conversations that took place, and so we don't have a proposal in front of us to actually
Sure.
to align with the conversations that presumably took place with other folks. And procedurally, we don't really have the ability,
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to understand what the next step is, so we can, we can do it the right thing.
The next step is to bring forward a motion, an item of business to hear, consider, and act upon a modification to an existing approval that we have from the commission, which is, I'm not even sure when the last one is. We've made at least 3. But if we go back to the meeting minutes of a few months ago, it is not consistent with tonight's discussion. I agree with Joe on that.
Okay.
So it would be my recommendation to work with Chris and Bill so that we have a proposal that's brought to the commission that they're comfortable with and is one that you support as well. And if there's a timing issue, then I'm happy to have a special meeting. It's not our intent to delay this. It's our intent to kind of clean up some conversations that have taken place over the years that are not consistent with tonight's discussion.
No, and we would like to do that. I mean, that's it, guys. We've been doing business in this town for 40 years. So we don't want to, we want to do the right thing. So however you guys want to, proceed, but just want to make sure that we have we have an understanding of what we should submit to you all to make everybody happy.
So Mark, last time, did we leave it where I thought that that Joe Pereira was going to retain a CCTV contractor to re-inspect the line while it's bypassed.
Mm-hmm.
That way we would know what was actually going on and that way we wouldn't play any kind of guessing game in terms of what the remediation was.
That's clearly what was indicated in the minutes.
Yeah, that was my main question. Who's.
And so that didn't happen, and I think that's why we were all just kind of surprised with the about face and plans tonight, which I don't have any issue with building and then doing the TV inspection, but I also don't think that the TV inspection from the doghouse downstream without bypass is worthwhile. So,
can you speak to that, Joe?
I think
Joe's
Joe Pereira left. Yeah,
Joe Pereira's off.
I need him. Okay, so maybe we could meet with staff and go over this with Joe, and before we propose something for the next meeting, everybody understands what we're proposing. Because when we TV'd the line, there was too much water in the line. You couldn't tell where the sag was, or if there was a sag.
Correct. Yep.
So we were proposing to build our infrastructure, put the doghouse in, and then decide. Then the town would decide once the doghouse is there what they wanted to do, to line it or to replace it based on whatever research they wanted to do.
Right. And I mean, I don't know. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
It's no different. Like, we're building this project, and we just Bob and I met with guys in the sewer place, sewer department a few years ago, So we were going to build our project, and we expected to connect to the town sewers. And we didn't really, it was up to whatever whatever was going on between our property and getting into the town sewers. We said, we'll give you $100,000 against this, because we would never, because it's a coastal area management issue, it's a ton of permitting, and we didn't know how to do that. So we couldn't get involved with that. We were entitled to tie into the town sewers. We're going to replace the mains on our property and tie into the sewers. And then we said, we'll give you $100,000 to do whatever you want to do if you need to upgrade the infrastructure from that connection point to the main in the swamp that goes over to Ruane Street by St. Thomas. So however you guys whatever you want us to do to paper that and make sure that that's what everybody understands, and we can do that for the next meeting.
Yeah, Mark, I think to try and summarize the conversations that have taken place back and forth over the last 5 years, none of us are going to get them entirely correct, the recollection correct. And it's almost doesn't make a lot of sense. We're at a point where we have a similar project that went through similar machinations, and we kind of landed in a similar spot. And I think that the commission needs to kind of know where are we now? Where's the department? Where's the developer? And what's being brought to the commission to opine on? And just speaking for myself, it's a weighty decision, and it's not going to be one that I'm personally inclined to make on the fly, particularly when Bill and Chris haven't really adequately weighed in on it. So I think a month is adequate time for us all to get on the same page and to bring something back to the commission. And we don't need to go back into the history of this. I think we all know it. The meeting minutes are accessible if anybody wants to go down that road. That would be my proposal.
No. So how would you suggest we accomplish that? To meet with Bill and Chris and Joe and us? And
that strikes me as making a lot of sense. I defer to my fellow commissioners if they have comments on that. On what would you like in order to the commission in order to opine on this next month?
So what do you think?
There's silence. Joe, please.
I understand what they're presenting tonight. I understand it. If we had a motion, I would understand how to put it together. So I don't need anything for the next meeting. It just changed from the last meeting. That's my only concern, that we need to take something update the public record. But
so this is Quinn. I think we need to.
What Matt's looking at from a bypass point of view. I'm just looking at it from a logical. We voted. It's in public record. They made a different proposal. It's actually a proposal that we've seen before, but it's different from the last one they presented. We just need to correct it on the record if we're going to go forward with this. So I don't need anything
I think we
else.
also need to share all the meeting minutes regarding this subject.
Yeah, they're out on the web. They're on the town page. You can read them.
Nancy.
This is just so, sorry.
Go on, Nancy.
I was just saying, this just all feels very inefficient. I don't understand how we're here.
This has been an ongoing back and forth over many years. There have been certain things offered and then modified.
But it's public record. We have recorded minutes.
Without question.
Nancy, my
That's why I'm
problem is the
saying let-
minutes we've approved, the last time we voted on this are different than the proposal they're making tonight.
But,
We've
right,
approved something already based on.
right. So then that's the answer.
Well, no, they want to modify their proposal and bring it back in front of the commission.
Well, okay.
So we got to go forward. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think we want to modify it, but our proposal's been the same from day one.
Mark, with all due
Absolutely not.
respect, it hasn't been. I mean, there was a clear proposal to replace the pipe. And that's where we're hung up right now. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar proposal that was made and we opined on.
I beg to differ. We never
Mark, we can go.
change.
Okay.
We never proposed that.
I mean, why don't we
There's
just
too
pull
much
up the
money.
minutes? Why don't we?
The minutes are clear, and it's.
I agree.
Again,
We should pull up the minutes and show them.
I don't think we want to go down that road, but Matt, please.
So, yeah, I mean, my question is really just if the last meeting, I know that we talked about doing the CCTV with a bypass, but that was it. I also recall that the limit was up to $100,000, and that if they were going to be doing the CCTV, that would be eating into that $100 donation that they gave. This proposal tonight, although it's from a workflow perspective different in that they wouldn't necessarily be leading that CCTV effort, if the $100,000 is still on the table, are we able to act on that tonight if it's not going to change in a month anyway? Or is that a procedural thing where we're not allowed to vote on it because it was just brought up tonight before without any advance notice?
So can I suggest something? Could we meet with staff and go through what we're all talking about and agree on something, and then present it for your next meeting to keep the record straight? Maybe that would help everybody here.
Bill and Chris?
Yeah, I'm more than willing to meet with staff, with them.
Sure.
I don't know why we were included in the meeting the other day, but.
And I don't exactly, sorry, I don't know what that means exactly, how it's going to change. We would.
No, Nancy, the issue is that there's a major modification to an infrastructure project. And the department, there's aspects of the department that aren't aware or just finding out what's being proposed. So I'm personally pretty uncomfortable.
No, that's what I'm saying. I understand that too. I'm uncomfortable as well, and especially in light of the questions that the Board of Selectmen had on Monday in terms of process and procedure and how things get communicated. So I guess I'm just sensitive to that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So
just to bring everybody up to speed. Yeah. Can I just speak for 1 second?
Please.
So
Chris.
there was a meeting last week that Bill and I were not involved with the Cinto team and the Director of Public Works and Laura Pooley from Engineering. They never included us in it. We have no idea what was being presented tonight for this project per se. So we've kind of been left out of the loop, and now all of a sudden this whole thing has changed. So that's where we stand with this. There's been a miscommunication in between, the Cinto team and how to, navigate through this whole process. So that's where we stand with this. So.
But as I said before,
sorry,
Mark, I just looked at the minutes, January 20th, 2021. Completely different than what was presented tonight.
So what are those? Okay.
And we voted on those minutes.
And so what are those minutes say?
The minutes say Cinto's going to replace the pipe if there's a dip in it. And Joe Perello was there. That's what we voted on. Whether it was right or wrong, that was what was presented and voted on. This proposal goes back to probably the minutes ahead of that, which said you're going to contribute up to $100,000 to reline the pipe.
Correct.
So the confusion is the January 20th meeting, the commission meeting. So
Okay,
I say we table this discussion and bring it back next month with the proper proposal, and we vote on it again.
great. And so who do you suggest, so we can meet with Bill and Chris and our engineer and to go through the proposal, agree on what the proposal is, and then submit it for the next meeting? Right? Is that what would that make it clean?
I think that's an accurate summary of what we think would be the appropriate course of action.
Yeah. All right.
All right,
And just so the commission knows, as I alluded to earlier, probably 15, 20 minutes ago, I did meet with Mr. Cinto Sr. prior to the time he met with John and Laura and discussed them about putting their infrastructure in. And I said, I didn't have a problem with it, but he was going to come before the commission. But, and I wasn't aware of the meeting, as Chris said, with the staff up at Public Works. So I thought I anticipated this meeting being something to that effect.
Okay, so the best thing for us to do is to meet with staff, go over what we just discussed, and present that in the next meeting, and to make everything clean, right?
Yeah, to bring forward an action.
That's what we want to do. We want to make sure it's clean.
Yeah, we're in agreement. A lot of nodding. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So I'll reach out tomorrow to Chris.
Yeah, that's fine. And I could pass the message.
Okay.
We can set up a meeting, an internal meeting. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll meet again. We'll bring Joe in, and we'll go through the proposal again, because we're ready to go.
Sure.
This is a $100 million project. We've been there for a long time, and both of us live in the town. We've been doing shit here for 40 years. So, we're not going anywhere.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Mark.
Great. I'll reach out to you tomorrow, Chris.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Okay. Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay. Moving back to the fog ordinance. Comments, questions? Motion to approve?
So a couple of comments I can make on it. We've modified the sewer blockage source. It was $1,000. We made it $1,000 minimum. So that cost would be pushed over to the, restaurant or establishment that caused the problem. Same thing with the source of the, any costs attributed to, cleanup or relieving the blockage would be, it's $1,000 minimum fine. We kind of need some teeth to enforce this, so that's why that's in there. One of the other proposals was to change the cost or the fee for the fog permit from $100 to $150. So, and that was done, in reference to, looking at other municipalities and what they charge as far as their permits. So some range from as far as $300 down to, $50. So for smaller communities.
Joe.
Chris,
Sure.
another procedural question. Will you send out, once we approve it, will you send this to each restaurant and each user
That's good.
as versus they find it as a surprise when they violate it and they find they have $1,000 fine on their hands? How does this get
Right.
communicated?
So
I know it goes on the website.
We would send out a notice in the fog letters. Now, here's the problem. The fog letters go out June 1st. So they're due back July 1st. So they wouldn't be enforced. And besides that, it has to go through the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and RTM. So for approval for the ordinance. So, this is going to take a little bit of time. Once the commission approves it, then we can start moving forward with, procedurally with the other commissions. So it wouldn't happen until, we could send out, once it's approved through all the boards, we can send the fog ordinance out to the establishments, but the current fog permit goes out June 1st, due back July 1st. So
That's what I thought. So this one's going to be in arrears. It's going to be
right. Unfortunately, it's just, it was a timing issue. So
Okay.
I had a couple of questions here for you, Chris. This is Ron.
Sure. Yep. Hey.
If you're going to bring up the renewal application to $150, should you have the application $200? One. In other words,
No, it would still remain 150.
It'd be 150 for both, initial and renewal.
No. So the renewal is the renewal is a renewal for an establishment that's already been in the system. A new permit would be for like a new restaurant that came online. So for instance, the Chick-fil-A would be considered a new establishment. So.
But what I'm saying is, are you proposing that you raise the renewal to 150?
Yes, the renewal would be 150 as well. I don't know if that was modified on here or not. Yeah, sorry, I didn't change that. But yes, you're right.
Okay.
So the renewal would go to 150. I'm just looking at it now. So.
The other thing is just my point of view, is there are some of these violation fees that to me are stronger than others, and I think that for the really tough ones, we ought to be increasing the penalty on it. You know, if they disallow.
Yeah, what we did was we put them in red. So the ones that they range from $250 to $500 for not supplying the grease hauler receipts. We left them like that so that so the commission can adjust those as desired. So before we approve it.
Well, I would say that, like, I see the one with 250 to 500 for a failure to submit a permit. But if you got disallow inspection, they're not allowing you to come in to inspect it. I would say that should be up to 500. I mean, that $25 is probably dropping a bucket for them. The difference between two. So I would say that the high end of this stuff should be raise some of this numbers.
Would be, yeah.
So this is Quinn. I've got a question. I have two questions. So one is, what is the average price to clean up one of these messes? I guess I have three. That's the first one. Second is, how can you determine who is, again, I'm not an expert here, how do you determine if there's two restaurants next to each other, whose fault it is?
Right.
And the third, all right, and then the third is, why, if there, do these fees cover all the administration expenses to actually monitor all this? In other words, when everyone sends in all their receipts, there's got to be someone who's monitoring all this and keeping track of it, and that's a big process, and it costs money too. I mean, is that baked into these numbers?
Right. So right now we have no fog ordinance. We have no control over, no teeth to enforce this. Back to your first point, how much would it cost for a cleanup? I mean, that could be, thousands and thousands of dollars. That's why we put in there a $1,000 minimum.
Right.
We have a scenario where we get a lot of grease.
So it'd be a $2,000 minimum. I mean, that's, again, so if it costs thousands and thousands of dollars to clean up each one of these.
That's why we put a minimum, a $1,000 minimum. So whatever cost would be to clean up, the restaurant establishment would be responsible for it.
So again, what is the average cost of cleaning up a mess like this? Is it $1,000? Is it $2,000? Is it $3,000?
I don't
Depends
think
on
we
how
have.
long it's overflowing.
We don't have
Depends
that
on how long the
figure.
blockage
Yeah.
is.
Listen, I'm going to knock on wood here. There aren't a lot of these in Fairfield. I've dealt with them for years and years and years in West Haven, and it could be tens to $20,000 to even larger sums than that. But it could be as little as a puddle on a floor. You don't know. It could be, it could be a few $100s just to clean a basement. A toilet or a wash machine in the basement overflowed because there was a grease blockage in a line, and that was the lowest point on the line where, as we all know, water seeks its lowest elevation. So it could be just like a puddle on the floor, or it could be, 2 inches or 2 feet of water in the basement. It varies dramatically.
Well, I'll give you an example.
Wait, I'm sorry, time out. We got into this kind of time sink last month, and the agreement was that if you had comments or questions, you were going to reach out to Chris and convey those to Chris, or ask those questions of Chris. We're at the risk of going into that trap again, and we still have some pretty multi-million-dollar projects to discuss in front of us this evening. So how do we want to manage it?
Okay, so I apologize. I wasn't in last month's meeting, so okay, I apologize. I won't ask the questions then.
Do we want to continue it for another month?
We could table this for another month if the commission feels comfortable.
So feel free to send. Chris has developed this. He's circulated it. He's had conversations with us. If you have comments and questions, please reach out to Chris, and hopefully next month we can have everyone's comments incorporated. Joe, yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this fog ordinance discussion to a date certain, next meeting.
Second, Matt, all in favor? Aye. Okay, item C, discuss funding for the hardening project. This is a fairly major one. Bill and Chris, do you want to introduce this?
Bill, I'll give this one to you.
Yeah, that's fine. As we've all known over the last year and a half with this hardening project, we've lived and realized how PCBs have impacted that site, and it's impacted it in different locations at different levels. Some not as severe as others. With the last section, probably last, 80 or 90 feet of the wall in the most impacted site over by the administration building. So we've had time delays, we've had soil contamination, we had disposal fees, all culminating in these projects. And at the Board of Selectmen meeting the other day and the Board of Finance meeting last night, they passed to go ahead and do basically a 62-38 split, to be just about exact, of the fees that are left in this project. If you look at that spreadsheet, on the last page of this, where they have the totals, you would see that the first line item, the $3,632,102, is the grant money. The $2,273,500 would be the town's share, and the $3,701,163 would be the WPCA share, for the total of $9,606,667, $9,606,765, hopefully completion fee. And that has to do with the funding going back through the history. As you can see, I think Laura Pulley pulled together for everyone, and Jared, and what the delays were, and that this was basically historical contamination. It wasn't contamination from the fill pile or anything like that. This was done for years and years, and it's deep layers. Some as deep as 12 feet, some deep as deep as 8. Some as shallow as a foot. So that culminated in doing all of this removal. Once was discovered, they had to do a site evaluation. So Connecticut DEP and the EPA were involved. They wanted to come up with a contamination removal plan. So they've come up with a plan to go ahead and complete this project. And they've given that to Ty and Bond, who in turn has given it to Holzner. So what we have to do to complete this project, whether it's cap some areas, whether it's to remove the soil, bring clean fill in. Most of the capping area is mostly where most of the landscaping is proposed. And then the other is where, depending on the level of contamination, whether the soil had to be removed and to what level as far as depth and concentration. So I think that's where we are now, and that's basically where they've, projected the cost, final cost to be. And I think they should be fairly accurate because we know all of what we're dealing with now. And again, they want to lock it in again so that, nothing goes up, other disposal costs or anything like that go up.
Comments,
This is Quinn.
questions?
Am I looking at the right document? I've got 227,700 for the cost without the gabion wall and planters, and then another 50,000, believe it or not, 170 for traffic control. Is that correct?
Yes, I see the flaggers for traffic control, the 5170.
Yeah, 50,170.
Yes, because what's going to happen now that, as I said, the major part of the wall is the completion part is over by the administration building in that corner where the most contamination is. The other two big aspects of this is the road raising. They have to raise the road at the initial gate of the treatment plant as you're coming down One Rod Highway, and at the gate right at where Denali, We Care, and the treatment plant gate is. Those two areas are going to be elevated to probably almost 14 feet. So you're going to see a rise in the road because you can't put a wall across the road because you got to get in and out. So what they have to do is they have to raise one side of the road, a little bit, go to the other side and keep raising it a little by little. And they're going to need a lot of traffic control because, you have the Denali site, you have the dump, the transfer station, you have the school buses, you have a lot of traffic that goes in and out of there on a daily basis.
Bill, walk us through the 62-38 split and how that was derived.
That was derived from a calculation that Jared came up with. He said, going back to the minutes, and that's what he found. Whereas I said the commission's concept, it was a 50-50 split. And he said from the Board of Selectmen and Tom Flynn's recollection, it was 91-90 WPCA town. So everything he looked through and he believes is, the town's obligation is that 2273,500. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's what I think, how he came up with those figures.
He said that. That's right.
I found on the minutes from February 25th, 2020, there was, wait, no, sorry, that might be the wrong.
Yeah. So there was a call, in full disclosure, I think, Joe, was it last week? I don't know, it seems like forever ago, but maybe it was a week ago, where we kind of had this put in front of us, and in order to get it to Nancy and the Board of Select Women on Monday, the Board of Finance, that we kind of had to give this a nod. And so we kind of gave it a nod in order to move it forward. I can't say I was real comfortable doing that. I think there's only kind of downside in doing that, but that's what came our way.
He said it had the approval of the commissioners, and I didn't feel I was in a position to push back in that regard. But I did bring up the issue of better communication and tried to point this out as an example where maybe we had a different accounting. And I referred back to that meeting we had with Tom Bremer over a year ago, where we sat down and tried to talk through some of these issues and pave the way for better communication in this regard. So
So,
It was awkward.
yeah, so the way I look at it as being a non-sewer user, that for $1 million allocation, roughly 380,000 of that goes to the town, and that's then split over, the 50,000 folks or the number of homes in town. So, the non-sewer users are picking up roughly 30% of that 380,000, or about 100,000 or so of every incremental million, which doesn't really vex me too much.
And he mentioned that too.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I missed the meeting, but yeah. So, I mean, we're all the same community. It's how are we going to split the pie up?
Right. I mean, I do think it was just a good sort of proof positive of why maybe we need to be communicating in a different way or a more regular way.
Holistic,
something we again talked about.
Yeah.
And then COVID got in the way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, certainly I think face-to-face meetings will help. Joe.
Just one point, I know Chris referenced the minutes from 2020. I'm back to the minutes to Board of Finance, June 2015. And you can see it was a 50-50 split back then. I don't want to relitigate history, but, I don't believe Mr. Flynn, and you put that in these records right here, as a public record, as a commissioner. I'm making that statement.
Yeah. Well,
it changes at his whim.
Yeah, we've noticed that. So 6238, I think the bigger issue is how do we get this done and how do we not have another increase? Joe.
One more point. I think the 227,700 that Quinn identified as the Gabion wall should be taken out of this.
Hasn't it already been approved?
You didn't approve it.
I think if you read that, it says cost without Gabion wall.
Yeah.
Yes, it's without the
Right.
Gabion wall.
Yeah.
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 The
So
Gabion wall, I remember,
that's
was
what we
another
approved.
$100,000.
That's what we
Stupid number.
that's right. Yeah. So if somebody wants to do landscaping, that's on their budget.
There's
Right.
also, there's a 15% contingency on top of the 1.64 million. That's a pretty big contingency number. I mean, this late in the game, I would think. No?
No, I think it's a great point, but we've been blown through contingencies left and right over the
Understood.
last year.
Is that a use it or lose it type of number though? Or, I mean, obviously I suspect they'll use it just based on our luck, but.
Well, I don't think, obviously, I don't think they're going to use it if they don't need to, because they're going to bond for this money. So they're not going to bond for any more money than they have to.
Okay. So that it just covers any, a
Matt,
small
it'll cover the
15% of
landscape.
unforeseen.
Matt, it'll be covering the trees, trust me.
Well, when we get to the Sacred Heart Pump Station, I think we'll get an update that we came in a bit under budget. But that's coming up in a bit. Yeah, or maybe that's a logical segue then to the update on the current projects.
Well,
Do we?
just on the last portion of this, and I know maybe, I know Nancy was at the meeting the other day, they weren't sure, and they had bond counsel there, that we did tell Jared that we'd be looking to bond for this money also with the town. And they said, obviously, whatever we bond comes out of our debt service.
Joe, this is where you would bring up the interest we're owed on our fund.
I
And
agree with that also.
that may be a good point now, because now we have a different finance director. So
I think I was just going to say, then maybe this is the time to revisit some of that conversation about talking about how we manage that with the new finance director, the cash. Yep.
So what are we supposed to do with these numbers right here now? Are we supposed to vote on them?
You know, it's an excellent question. It's kind of the horse is out of the barn already, and it's kind of been approved by the other
We'd-
committees, but
And then wouldn't we have to then, if there are any changes, if we don't vote for it, it'd have to go back through the process?
yeah.
I
Anyone
mean,
have
our
any
hands are
more?
tied.
Yeah, that's beyond my scope of Robert's rules.
And so this is Quinn. Is there any way to reduce somehow this traffic control expense of $50,000, which is almost a quarter of the overall cost? And it's like ridiculous, those numbers.
I think
Again,
we have,
like I
we're
said,
using
that's going to
flaggers.
be, that traffic is going to be huge, number one. And that's, again, a budgetary number. If it comes in lower, it comes in lower. If it comes in higher, it's, obviously going to have the contingency, but I think that was a pretty fair estimate that Laura put in there for the amount of work that's going to have to be done. And hopefully it's going to be done in, June, late June, after the school buses stop, and completed by the end of, middle August before they start up again. So hopefully maybe that lessens the traffic, but that was the budget number she came up with. And I don't want to go ahead and start changing anything in there right now.
I'm inclined to just make note of that discussion and move on, unless anyone feels differently. Seeing none, let's move to update on current projects.
The first,
I'll take.
you want me to
Yeah,
start
go
with
ahead,
A? I'll
No,
start
yeah,
with
go.
A. And I apologize, I didn't bring this up during the minutes. In the minutes, it says repair the transformer. The transformer is not going to be repaired, it's going to be replaced. It's been ordered. I think it was 6 to 8 weeks. We're probably 2 weeks out from when we ordered it, so we've got a ways to go. We're monitoring the transformer that's in place. It's still losing some oil. I bought some magnetic thermostats to put on it to make sure it's not overheating. The level indicator, hopefully it's accurate, because it looks like it hasn't lost anything. Anytime you see a little bit of oil on the ground, it spreads quickly. You think it's gallons when it's really only a minute amount. So we have speedy dry that we take care of that with, and so we're hoping that we're pretty confident we're going to get through this. And obviously, if that transfer doesn't go down, we go over to generator power. But I'm not anticipating that, but we do have a contingency. So if something does happen. I can move on to B, the status of the generator at the treatment plant. That's just almost side by side by the transformer. The pad's been placed. They were waiting for the inspector from the town to come out and inspect the gas line. That's been done. So the next thing would be to go ahead and pour a slab. The generator's in, I believe it's in Stratford at a yard, quick pitch yard. So as soon as that slab is poured, they'll bring the generator in. They'll put it on top of the slab, and then they'll go ahead and complete all of the wiring and transferring over from the old generator to the new one. The one aspect we have not seen anything yet on is the gas company has not run the gas line. So I did not get an update. I don't know if Chris did from Laura or not on that.
There was a small issue with elevation of the storm line in the road, so they're trying to work through that. It's a minor hurdle, but whether they want to go above or below the pipe, but there was an elevation difference or question in that.
Okay, let's keep going.
I think I think we beat to death pretty good, didn't we? The Harding project. Does anybody have any other questions? D, do you want to take D, Chris?
D, the pump station. So the electrical conduit's been done. The slab has been poured. They're running the conduit between the wet well, the valve vault, and the building, the main building. As we speak, it's going to be inspected on Friday. From there, then the building that will go up. It's a block building. They're anticipating maybe a week for it to go up. That should start probably Monday or Tuesday of next week. So we should see some significant progress in that time period. They started to grade the property, clean it up, get it, rough graded. They've installed the gravity line. That was a big endeavor. It was 17 feet deep with solid rock. They had to hammer. It took probably about 2 weeks to do, but it's been done. It's completed. It's backfilled. So it's out of sight, out of mind. So that's the portion of that. I'll take the next one as well. The force main.
Wait,
that's been all done. Yep, sorry, go ahead.
Hold on a second, Chris. I'm just looking at my notes from last month. Did an invoice go to Sacred Heart? Do you know?
For
the pump station?
Yeah.
No, it has not. The $300,000 that they owe us, I talked to them. I told them about it, that we need it. And they said it was with their counsel and it would be submitted. So I don't know what procedurally if we need to supply them with an invoice, but I have notified them, and they did tell me that it's with their counsel and it will be submitted. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate the update.
Yeah. All right. Item E, the pump station or the force main. Sorry. The paving's been done. We did get notification from or have a discussion with the state that it is on the paving list to be paved. We won't know if totally 100% that it's been cut from the state budget until end of May, beginning of June. But it's a pretty good chance that road will be paved. As of now, everything's been closed out. We haven't paid the final invoice yet, but there's a cost savings of $77,000 in that project. So, which is good. So that's it for that. I don't know, Bill, you want to take over or you want me to keep going or, the East Trunk Interceptor relocation. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we're waiting for Ty and Bond to go ahead and start their soil analysis. We're waiting for the approval from the purchasing department. They need a contract from Ty and Bond. We tried to get it on the selectmen board meeting on Monday, but they had a full agenda and Gerald had not received the contract to sign. So it'll probably go out to the June 7th meeting and hopefully that'll be approved. And then Ty and Bond will get out there and start doing the soil evaluations along that route that the proposed East Trunk line is going to run. G, I don't have any update on the siphon. I haven't heard from Laura or Bill Hurley about Ty and Bond and that culvert work that's being done on Riverside Drive. I don't know. Chris, have you heard anything?
No, nothing. No update. So Ty and Bond, they have the plans. Last we talked about, there was a cost increase on it, but that was 3 months ago. We haven't heard any significant updates since then.
Chris, when you, maybe Bill rather than Chris will be leaving us. When you get the new numbers, Bill, can you share them with us and get it on the agenda? Because I'd love to vote on that one again.
The new numbers for
siphon.
Oh, the siphon. Okay.
Siphon.
400,000, Bill. 400,000. Put that in your mind.
Okay.
Love it. That's great.
I'll take the next one. The WPCA outfall. Ty and Bond was they submitted the RFP. We had 3 other companies. They were lowest in the RFP. We've worked with them. They've submitted a contract. We have more grant money left in that contract that we're going to use. They're working to schedule the environmental testing. Once we get the environmental testing back, we can reconvene. As you know, last month we went to bid and then we pulled the bid because there were some questions. We need to do some more investigating first. Actually, we just got an email today, and Laura had a discussion with a gentleman who worked on the project previously for the treatment plant upgrade. It was determined, I guess, that line was lined out to Long Island Sound. So whether we need to redo it, I guess we have to kind of, have a discussion of what the next step is going to be as far as, cameraing the line. Is the liner still intact? There's still some questions that need to be answered. So, but it's good finding that we did, or some good information that we did find out that the line was lined, that there is a liner in there.
Yeah.
So that liner could be protecting that line essentially.
Yeah.
So.
Laura spoke to Bill Brink. He's the WPC administrator at Stanford now. He used to work for Stearns and Wheeler, who's GDH now, or GHD. And he was the project manager on this project. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he's helped us out in several questions, including
Bill, how long ago was the pipeline?
It was probably the late 90s, early 2000s.
And how is there a warranty, or how long does a lining typically, we can guess?
I would say a lining usually lasts, 50, 60 years.
Okay.
If it's obviously if it's installed correctly, that's the question. But
is there a warranty on it by the company that installed it?
There probably is, but I'm not sure it's a 50 or 60-year warranty. I will. I don't think there's a problem with the liner. I mean, we're not, the line's not backing up or anything like that. We're not finding any kind of, a lot of times when the liners fails, you find some adhesive or something, we're not seeing any of that. So I don't think there's any problem with the liner. It's just, we on some prints, it said that the pipe was lined and nobody knew that it was lined.
Okay.
What was the driver for the project?
Are you thinking of the Cinto project? Is that why you're asking the question?
What was the driver for the outfall repair project?
What was the driver? Again, I thought the email or talking to Laura, I thought there was some leaking joints.
Okay. Leaking joints, right? Yeah. Yep. All right, that's that one. East Trunk Wetland Crossing. We just had a conversation today. We're going to have a meeting on June 2nd with the engineer to start the project. They're coming to us to sit down and give them the mapping and get a feel for what their steps are and how they're going to move forward on this. So that's on June 2nd. They wanted to have it sooner, but they're in geotech consultant will be away, so until that time. So I don't know, Bill, you want to do the wastewater treatment plant?
Yeah. I've talked to John Marsilio, and he said we needed to get a hold of Tom Bremer. So we're going to meet next Wednesday at 10 o'clock to go over the funding of the design and probably move forward with getting it on the Board of Selectmen meeting, hopefully for June 7th, if we can. I do know John Marsilio is not a fan of design bid build projects. He comes from a long line of construction through Aquarian, Town Bridgeport, and some other projects. The problem when not doing a design bid build project is DEEP will not fund it. There'll be no state revolving fund money, which means there's no 20% grant, which means there's no $12 million that we get a state grant. So he's aware of that. He's not a fan of it. He's not saying we're not going to do it. He's just saying he's not a fan of that type of completion or delivery of a project. So that I'm sure will be coming up in the meeting, but hopefully we'll get through that and move this project onto the Board of Selectmen and then through the rest of the boards within the town.
Bill, do you know if design build is an option through any of the federal infrastructure grant money?
I have not seen any of the federal money come through anywhere but the state. So as you know, most of that money is going to trickle down through the state revolving fund. Unfortunately, I would love to get some of that money straight through the federal government, but I don't think they're going to deliver it directly to projects. I think they're going to go through the states from everything I'm reading. If they do that, that would be great because we'd love to do the East Trunk line too.
Right.
But the way it appears, it's still going to go through all the states and agencies. And once it gets through DEEP, that's really the only way that they'll let you. They don't construction management. They don't really look at anything else except for the design, bid, build aspects. And I mean, it's got nothing to do against our engineer or hopefully we're looking at there's only really one large construction firm left in the state that does projects like this. So if Nickerson does get it, they're very, very good. So, we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, it usually contracts the schedule too not having to go through the elongated procurement process. But.
Yeah, and then again, as you're aware, once you have to go through DEEP, it's low bid and things like that, and
right.
You have to really, if you want a piece of equipment and it's the proper piece of equipment, you really have to throw them to a lot of hoops. Not impossible, but they make it difficult. Any questions on that? Moving forward, Upper East Trunk and Scepter, I have no update on that one, Chris.
No, same. No update.
Microgrid again, I think we pretty much took care of that earlier. No update on the pipe on Stratfield Road. Chris, do you have anything on that?
No. It's the only update with that is that we are going to clean it. It is on the list to have flushed and cleaned to remove any grit and see if the flow increases in that.
Okay. Is that part of the phase 3 or phase 4 work?
I think based on the proposals that were just submitted today, I think it's phase 3, but I don't know if you're going to go forward with it. So okay. It was included with that work that was National had submitted.
So it was included for the lines down from on the Post Road
on South Benson.
Yeah, South Benson. Okay.
Chris, right now over at Owen Fish, they're digging the trench for the gas going to the Little Red House.
Yeah, they're doing new gas service. They're connecting the gas services. So they ran the main last year, and now they're doing the services. So
yeah,
before the state paves that road for us.
Yeah, if you start talking about digging, you better identify a street because seems like any street you turn down in Fairfield, somebody's digging something.
Right, they're working somewhere.
All that white paint all over the roads.
Right. Item N, I think we can take off the, sorry, I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you because I don't know anything about that one.
No, I think we can take that off. They've taken their proposal to P&Z off the table. They're going to resubmit. So I think they're going to resubmit to us as well. So I think we could take item N off the list. There's no update on it. So, and I don't know if you want to touch on O, the phase 3 and 4, Bill. You might know a little more about it.
Yeah, phase 3, they're underway. They did a lot of grout repairs up on Rangeley and a couple other streets. They did some manhole work. Started yesterday, did some today. They're going to hopefully complete by the end of the week. Then they have some liners to put in place and continue on to complete the phase 3. We were looking at those lines over on South Benson because of that snafu with the meter when we opened the manholes and saying, everything looked like it was fine, and then the flow was it. So we thought maybe we should, do some heavy cleaning because there is a large line. There may be some grit that's given us some false elevations too, because there may be an inch or two of grit on the bottom of that pipe that's raising the flow also. So we asked Ray Pierce to go ahead and get the contractor to give us a price on some heavy cleaning of the 24-inch line there and the 10-inch that was up on by Owen Fish Park. So they gave us that, and I think I think there was 2,500 feet at South Benson, and I don't remember, Chris, how much was the 10-inch? Do you remember?
It's about 1,000 feet up on.
So about 3,500 feet. So it came back about $48,000. They have to do really heavy cleaning, so it could be less, but that's probably the upper limit. So we're evaluating that right now, and I went back with a question: if this is a change order, sometimes when it's a change order, contractors tend to be a little heavier with the pen. I said, would be more beneficial to put it in phase 4 and as a bid item, and maybe we get a better competition between some of the guys bidding in the contract. Dennis evaluated the numbers and he said they're pretty accurate to what he's seeing, industry wide. So he's pretty confident in that numbers, but we're still evaluating that. And if it's change order work, we'll probably go ahead. There is money available in there, and in that account, that's the INI account that comes out of the operating budget. So, and phase 4, probably getting ready to bid that. Budgets have passed, so our budget passed intact. So that would be again part of that $400,000 INI money that's in the line item out of the operating budget.
Is there any update from the Carriage Drive folks?
Yeah, I did have a conversation with Tim Warren. They have done some preliminary work to acquire a LEP to do the environmental testing. They've gotten one quote. He submitted it to me, wanted to know if it looked good. I said, these are the parameters that you would have to, fulfill. They're working with another company. I said, you can get multiple companies that don't have to go with, 1 or 2. But they are working in the time frame to, acquire an environmental LEP to do this work. So.
Comments or questions from anyone?
Chris, just one update. You mentioned on Umpqua Road, there was something that low-income housing was sold, and you had 12 houses that were going through one.
Right. Yep.
Whatever happened there? Just
We're
curious.
still waiting for Jim Baldwin. Yep. Jim Baldwin has all the information. There's numerous emails been back and forth with Operation Hope, who owns it now. They're looking for an update. We haven't gotten any reply back from Jim Baldwin on it. So it's still, he's researching it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any discharges or bypasses?
No.
Okay.
There is a new DEP Right to Know Act. Used to be you would have to report it to the chief elected officer, anything over 5,000 gallons, and the health official of the town. Now they say if it's any environmental impact or reaches any receiving water. So it's putting more onus on the operators about whether they believe you're harming the environment or not. So we may do some more reporting just to be on the safe side. And you also have to report it to the downstream health official.
Okay.
But if you don't have any, you don't have to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so
Hopefully
any
not.
fog comments, questions to Chris? Next month, I'll be in the woods of Yosemite, so I'd ask my friend Joe to run the meeting, if you would, please. Chris, will you still be with us next month?
Yes, probably so. Yeah.
Okay.
We're starting the transition, but yes, probably so.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? I got a few.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for everyone's time.
All right.
We
Good
appreciate
night,
it.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Good night. Thank you.